We've got all the players back from the break, being home for a few days with their family, and worked out last night, and so we're back into a normal week routine where today's off and then back to practice on Tuesday, and so trying to get the players back into game week, and when you have some time off, everybody enjoys it, but it's important we get them back and get focused on tomorrow's practice and meetings and the game. Just take it one day at a time. But everybody's back and in good shape, so it's good to get back to a normal routine after a nice break for a few days.
Mike, was the bye week beneficial to your team?
You know, we've talked about it. I don't know anymore if bye weeks are beneficial or not beneficial. Is the hand we've been dealt, so I'm going to say yes.
Did you heal up some kids?
Yeah, I think it's good for everybody. I don't think there's any question that when you have a bye week that it's good for players to kind of rehabilitate their bodies and take a break, not only physically but mentally. We were on a pretty good stretch there for a while. So it's been good for our team, and we'll get back to work tomorrow.
Having played and coached in it, what do you think of when you first hear Bedlam, when someone brings it up?
Well, I mean, it's the same as it has been for a long time for me. You know, the difference in this game and some other rivalries across the country is we don't have professional football in this state, so it's a little different from that aspect. Other than that, just about every game we play now is a big game if we want to get to the next one. So,
Mike, when you got on the plane to come home after West Virginia, did you think to yourself, here's all the issues we have and here's the ones that we have to fix if we're going to get any better? I mean, what were you thinking to yourself after West Virginia about what this team was capable of doing?
well, I didn't think we played very good, and I was disappointed in myself. Ultimately, I'm responsible for the way our team plays, and I knew that we had some areas we needed to improve in, but there was only a certain amount of time in so many days to improve in those areas. Try to do it a little bit at a time, get better each week, and hopefully at the end of the year we'd be a better football team than when we were at West Virginia, which fortunately for us worked out that way.
Was it fixing your offense? Was that the biggest issue you felt like after that game, that you just had to do something? Man, I know you had some struggles the next two games on offense too, but was that the biggest issue you think you had?
Well, we weren't very good in the kicking game either. And so we had to improve in the kicking game, and we had to block more effectively in order to fit our style of run. We needed to identify our running backs and how they were going to fit into our scheme. It's no different than what I said in August when we were in Dallas, that we needed to be balanced on offense. We needed to get good quarterback play, and we needed to identify a running back and a young running back. And at that point we hadn't, and so we weren't a very good football team.
Do you have concern, Mike, when you come off a big win like you had against Baylor and the next week's an off week, the concern about maybe losing focus a little bit, or because you have so much senior leadership, has that been less of a worry for you in this type of situation?
Well, coaching is like parenting. You worry every day. You know, you give your 16-year-old a set of car keys and hope that he follows the rules and doesn't text message when he's driving, that he'll be safe. And in dealing with these young men, it's the same for us as coaches. We have really good team chemistry. We have good leadership. I think they understand what's really important in this game is Tuesday's meetings and Tuesday's practice. And we're just not good enough to look beyond that. We haven't been that way for this season. We have to be sound in all three phases. And they have handled themselves very well up to this point, and that's why they're in a position to be successful. They've already been successful. I mean, they've had a tremendous year. They have a chance to finish based on the way they've prepared over the last 2 months.
Is it as simple as Clint Shelf being inserted against Iowa State? I mean, y'all seem to, that seems to be the point at which y'all kind of took off. Is it that simple, or is there a more complicated explanation?
I think it's much more complicated. I'll say that we were very poor up front in our blocking, and that wasn't necessarily related to players or coaching. I think there was a number of factors that contributed to us being poor in that area. We learned and grew as a coaching staff. I know I did as a head coach when we had injuries and how to replace certain players, and fortunately we were able to limp our way through the middle part of the season until we could kind of restore what direction we wanted to go up front. During that time, it led to poor quarterback play, which the quarterbacks took most of the heat for that, but it wasn't necessarily them that were. They weren't really responsible for it as much as it was our offense in general.
Mike, when you played, you were probably as physical as a quarterback could be. You prided yourself a little bit on that. And as a coach, you've always wanted your teams to play physical. Now that you're coming toward the end of this season, how do you rate this team on physicality, on how they played physical both sides of the ball?
Well, I think up to where we are now, our team has been physical. That most coaches, if you listen to the comments that are made in preseason and in postseason and in spring football, they're going to say we want to be a physical football team. There's a side of the spread offense and teams playing with the width of the field that I think is a lost art from a physicality standpoint, but for the most part, this team has been physical, and we have to continue to play that way. And I think that as I read and listen to other people in all sports who I think are intelligent and have made good decisions in coaching and are good leaders, they'll tell you whether it's football, basketball, or whatever sport it is, we have to be physical in order to be successful. And I think this team's done a good job of that.
What stands out to you about the Sooners this year when you turn on film?
Well, they run well on defense. They're getting good play up front. They're still big and physical. Their quarterbacks played very well last week, running the football really well, and I think they block good up front. And they've got a great returner, and they've got, which he doubles as a wide out, 2 or 3 skill guys out there at the wide out position that can make plays. So they're a really good football team. This will be a good challenge for our team. Oklahoma's playing good, and I'm sure Coach Dukes will have them ready to play.
Mike, if you win this game, you'll have the best record in the Big 12 over the last 5 years, 2 conference titles, 4-2 record against OU and Texas in the last 3 years. If you lose the game, now you've lost 10 of 11 to Oklahoma, this program has. How big is this game in asserting that Oklahoma State, it's not just the Big 2 in the Big 12 anymore, that it's really now a Big 3?
Well, that's a lot of questions in one question for me. I mean, honestly, I'm not really trying to get. I think the answer that you're looking for is Oklahoma State has come a long way in football, and these players, the guys that are on the team, have brought this to a different level nationally. And so they've earned the right for people to look at them as a respected, legitimate top 25 team. And our goal when we started this thing 10 years ago or 9.5 years ago was that year in and year out, on a daily basis, when we went to play a football game, we wanted to have a chance to win and not go to the stadium and the fans feel like that we don't have a chance to win. And I think we're to that point. This game is a big game just like the Baylor game was, and the Kansas was a big game too, because if we didn't beat Kansas, we wouldn't be here right now. So they're all big games. That's what I think people lose the fact that they say, well, this is a big game. They're all big games when you're in the situation that we're in. The BCS and the conference championship, the way it's set up here in our league is you have to win one week to get to the next for the most part. You're allowed really one slip up, and then after that, chances are you can't win your conference. And so that's where we're at. These players have achieved and have done a great job, and we certainly want to prepare well and go play hard and have success on Saturday. But under no circumstances would I ever take anything away from what these kids have done over the last 5 years. I mean, they've been tremendous. For me, when I go to work every day, I enjoy being around them, seeing them develop as people, as men, learning the ups and downs just like they did when we didn't play well early in the season and people didn't give them a chance. And they learned to persevere and fight through things, and that's kind of what life's about. So that's the way I see this group, and I always will.
You said that the program's come a long way with these, thanks to these kids. You guys have won the Big 12, gotten a BCS bowl, two things that Oklahoma State had not done before. Is beating Oklahoma on a consistent basis kind of one of the next steps that this program needs to take?
Well, again, our goal is to win our conference. And then as the chips fall based on how the country feels about us or any other school from this league getting into the Final Four, which is the future, we can't control that for the most part. Okay, we can debate scheduling. We can debate a lot of different things, winning by big margins, trying to get status points from here on out. Okay, but for us, we want to go show up on Saturdays and give ourselves a chance to win and do it the right way. We do it with a lot of. We want to do it unselfish. We want to be humble. And we want to do it with respect to the game of football, and that's what's most important to us. These are all big games, but 10 years from now, if the guys that are playing for us aren't productive out there in society, then ultimately we failed them. I failed them, and Oklahoma State failed them. So that's really the big picture that people don't see. That's what's important to me. And along the way, they work hard. They put a lot of time and effort into it, so we want them to have success. I used the example a second ago. It's like your own children. That's the same way that we see these players, and we talk about it every day that way.
Mike, one of the drawbacks of playing this week, and there's a lot of exposure, and it's that championship weekend. One of the drawbacks, though, is the recruiting calendar started with home visits and being on the road. How big of a drawback is that, or is your program to the point where the exposure means more than the fact you lose a week against some schools on the road?
Well, winning helps recruiting, but you get 2 weeks to recruit up until January 16th, and one of those weeks is going on right now. And so Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, I can't speak for Bob, but it's not the best for us to be sitting at home when the other schools, for the most part, and there's a few championship games going on, but for the most part, they're out recruiting. So we lost 50% of our recruiting based on this game, but that's the hand we've been dealt.
Mike, when you guys made the quarterback switch, did you foresee that the offense could potentially be now what it is with Clint quarterbacking?
Well, we felt like we were going to be good on offense once we kind of identified who was going to play up front, and then we improved ourselves somewhat in the running game at the running back position. It took us a while to get going, but we felt like that, we're going to run the same plays, we're going to have the same offense that we've had, and we just needed to follow through and kind of identify who we are and get better each week.
Considering those changes, did you think you had a top 10 team before you made those changes at the beginning of the season? Before you made the changes at quarterback and running back?
You talking about in August? You talking about in
August?
I thought we had a chance to have a good football team. I've said this before. I think our best team was years ago before the 2010 team that we didn't win the conference. I thought that was our best team. And for whatever reason, we didn't. We lost on the road 24-20, and anyway, it doesn't matter. But a 8 or 9 win team versus 11 or 12 win team a lot of times is based on the players and how they respond to winning, to adversity, and if they really care about each other. And so those victories to get to double digits, for the most part, are delicate. And there's a real fine line there of a 8-win season and a 10 or 11-win season. And it's usually based on the players and how they respond during the year. It's a long year for them. It's August, September, October, November, 4. They're in their 5th month now. So we only need to go 3 more weeks, and we're into an NFL season. It's one thing that I don't think is very good for amateur athletes. I don't think it's good for college football. I think it needs to be reduced without all the open dates. But the reason is, one of the answers that I'm giving you for that is because they have to stay focused, and it's a tough test for them. It's for everybody in the country, but it's a tough test for them. Some teams handle it different than others.
And you feel that your team realize, at least the leaders maybe realize that it's a process to be a top 10 team rather than just
Process meaning?
I guess it takes all season to prove it. And,
It is. It's a long run. You're going to have some ups and downs, and I've said this for a number of years that we would try to prepare and hope that we win every game, but history tells us in college football that that's probably not going to happen. So you're going to lose some games that you think you could have won, but for whatever reason your game plan wasn't as good as it needed to be. You may have had an injury to key position. You turn the ball over, whatever it may be, and that's the difference in a 8 or 9 win season and a double-digit win season.
You game plan for the potential of bad weather, and if it's snowy and icy, how big of a deal could that be for Saturday?
No, we just go play.
I would imagine that Bedlam is a game that's in the back of your mind every season. Did you feel any differently about it this year, being predicted, be the Big 12 favorite? Did you foresee it, kind of the odds being the way they are now with OU kind of being the spoiler?
Well, I don't know that we can ever look far enough down the line to predict. There was more pressure put on this team being picked preseason number 1. It's the first time that ever happened in the history of this school. So, and I said that it doesn't give you any advantage. It just puts more pressure on you. And I think that's true because now everybody's telling you that you should not only be really good, you should have a chance to win the conference. And there's a lot that has to happen for that to take place. So it put more pressure on us.
Is Deani Monte kind of a great example of a guy who doesn't get as much playing time at his position, but really makes an impact and gets after it on special teams?
Yeah, he's a great success story. He's had some injuries and has been limited, and he's been at that third team role for us on defense, but has taken ownership in special teams. And he's an example of the chemistry and the players I talk about that are difference in 7 or 8 wins and double-digit seasons. Is a young man like him that has just taken ownership in our kicking game, our coverage units, our return units, which have been very good this year. We were fortunate. Our defense and our kicking game carried us through games 4 through 8 for the most part. And he's a big part of that, a guy that doesn't get brought up a lot, but if somebody doesn't take ownership in it, then you're just going to be average.
Mike, you mentioned the offensive line having to come together, running game having to come together, but the quarterback switch, I want to go back to that for a second, because of the importance of that guy within the locker room, because of just that position in football in general. It's such a big deal. Did you guys as coaches, you, Mike, whoever else was involved in the decision to go with Clint, do you have to set aside, I don't know, any ego, pride, preconceived notions about things when you make that switch? Does anything have to happen with you guys as coaches when you make that change?
Well, we have to take everything out because at that position it's going to be a critical decision with the team and with the fans and with the media. It's the way it is. And so we can only make those decisions based on what we think is best because either way it's going to get worked for you and against you. And so we really make the decision based on what we thought made us the best offense at that particular time. And we go with it from there on because you can't control the rest of it. And it's just like in most things that happen now in this country is people are going to pick one side or the other, and it's going to be debated from here on out.
In terms of the foundation of the program, facilities, recruiting, coaches' salaries, do you feel like your foundation is as good as it's ever been here, program-wise?
Well, I think our facilities, I don't know that anybody in this league, and I haven't seen everywhere in the country, I don't know that once we finished our indoor and our new outdoor fields, I don't know that anybody can compare to what we have. I'm sure somebody can. I don't know where we rank now, assistant coach salaries. I know those continue to go up. I think our guys make good money and they're comfortable and they're happy here. So I was asked this question 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I think this is a great job. And I think that there's a lot of people that have contributed to it. And so it's worked out really well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's based on the players. The players have to decide they want to be a big-time program in more ways than one. And if they do that, then you have a chance. If not, then it's really hard because we can't do it for them. We can only guide them and lead them, and then they have to take over.
The things I just talked about, was that kind of a big factor in Bedlam being this to being more even-keeled?
What do you mean?
In terms of if you had disadvantages in the past, whatever those disadvantages were from whether it's recruiting, facilities, coaching salaries, whatever, you now feel you're closer to even par, and that's why Bedlam is.
Oh, I think people can talk about that forever, and I wouldn't even know how to go back years wise, but I mean, I would say that over the last 15 years, that it's every game is. I think one year they smoked us down there. It's been a give and take where people that watch it, like you guys do, that when you went to the stadium, you didn't know who was going to win. Now, there was a time, and I'll be wrong in my years, but I think when I was in high school, give or take a couple years, and then maybe some in the early 90s and then 70s, where I'm not sure that was a factor, but that would be just a guess.
I don't know if there's any way to quantify this or not, but how much has your talent across the board improved? Say, you mentioned 15 years ago, I don't know if you want to use that mark, but can you quantify the improvement in talent in this program?
Our talent level's improved in the last 6 years, is when we've gotten considerably better athletically. And I say again, I think it was 08-ish or 09 was when we had our most talented team. Just from what an NFL grading system would be. The NFL comes in and grades your team, your roster, and guys get a certain grade. And for example, we may have 9 guys that get a grade, and Florida State may have 27 guys that get a grade. So if you go off that, that's kind of what I've watched, and our talent level has increased considerably in the last 6 or 7 years.
Do you remember any of those numbers of grades?
No, but I mean, we hear that. Like, guys will come through, friends of ours that are scouts, and say, you've got 8 guys that get a grade. And I was just at Joe Blow University, and they had 24 guys that got a grade. Well, chances are they're pretty good. They have 24 guys that are getting graded. And that's when our numbers have increased the most.
Mike, if I counted right, there's 28 seniors that are going to be playing in the last football game at T-Boone Pickens Stadium. Just talk a little bit about the senior class.
Well, it's a special group, and I've talked about it a lot in general, but not specifically with names. And we've been fortunate enough to say this about the last 3 or 4 or 5 classes that have come through here. You're talking about a group of guys that have won, I don't know, he looked it up, 50 games over the last 5 years, something like that. Have been to bowl games and won them, and been in BCS and won those and been ranked. I don't know what the number is, but they've kind of set the standard, and they've really put their heart and their soul into this program. And as I said, there'll be just a very, very small or very few that'll have a chance to do this for a living. They're going to go out there and get a real job, and they're going to be a part of Oklahoma State football forever. And ultimately, that's the satisfaction that we get, seeing them come back. Just like on game day on our walk, we see all the knuckleheads that played here. They're standing on the side yelling and high-fiving and all that, and now they have real jobs. They're coming back, and they love Oklahoma State football. And that's what this senior class means, and the tradition that we're trying to build. We've finally started to build some tradition here in football over the last 3 or 4 years, to where they're proud to say they played football at Oklahoma State. And I think this class falls in that category.
Mike, when you look at this class, and maybe you haven't done that, but Sean Lewis, 43 straight starts. Levy, Lowe, 37 straight starts. That's a lot of experience.
Well, that's why our defense is having success this season, is because they're mature. They've played in a lot of games. Caleb Levy has played considerably better this year than he did 2 years ago, just because he's seen it. And there's no substitute for experience. And we have a number of guys that are experienced and understand, and it gives you a chance to win on Saturdays.
One of those Bedlam games you mentioned that where you didn't know who was going to win happened 25 years ago on this field. What do you remember about the 1988 Bedlam game?
Oh, I think the same everybody. We obviously had a very good game, and had a chance to win. A guy dropped a pass. I mean, I think that's what everybody remembers. And we had a 15-yard penalty prior to that, that people think of when you talk about that game.
When you threw the ball, do you think he's got a chance to catch it, or was it desperation heave, or?
I wouldn't have thrown it if I didn't think he could catch it. Honestly, and I've said this before, but the play was intended to go to Hartley Dykes, but 2.5 guys from their team jumped on him, and they turned him loose running down the middle of the field.
Hey, speaking of receivers, and you talk about the talent upgrade, you seem to have a lot of talent at that position. How much has it meant to the offense, and you talk about all the other areas of offense, but how much has it meant to the offense to really start to distribute the ball to those guys a bunch?
They've carried us through a time when we were getting better, but we had, we lost 84 and we lost 85. Both those guys had injuries, and we still don't have them full speed, but they're working their way back. That was a factor. We lost 18 for Blake for, 4 or 5 weeks. But Josh obviously played well. We lost him for a while. Tracy has been steady for us, and Charlie Moore's been steady for us. And then we had some freshmen that made some plays. 81's made some plays. 7, he's made some plays. Glidden has showed up and made some plays. So the depth that we talked about at that position before the season kind of carried us through a time when we needed it. But the injuries we had at that position kept us from doing some things offensively that we would have liked to have done, but we couldn't when we had so many of those guys hurt at one time.
How much extra emotion does it add to this game? You're going to be facing your brother on the other sideline.
I mean, it's kind of worn itself out. And I used to say that, he coached offense and I coach offense, and the truth is, a lot of times I forget he's even over there when you get into a game, and because you think about big games, which, as I said earlier, the way it's set up now, every game's a big game. Because if you don't play well against somebody that they think you're going to beat and you lose, you never get to this point. And you're only concentrating on the next call and the decision you're going to make in a kicking situation, in a 4th down situation or a blitz situation, and not really worried about what else is going on. And so it's never been an easy day for us because obviously our family wants both of us to have success, and that can't happen when we play. So, we do it one time a year, and then after that it's over with and we go on down the road.
Been around this game a long time. There's some rivalry, respected rivalry, some are hated rivalry. Certainly Ohio State, Michigan coaches don't even say the other school's name. Which is this?
I don't believe in that. I guess that depends on who the coach is. We have respect for everybody we play. And this team, this program has come a long ways. That the slogan, respect everybody, fear nobody. Our players feel like that they can, if they play well and take care of the football, they can beat anybody that we play. But we certainly have respect for the teams that we play. And I know that the fans, the people may not want to hear that, but those guys, some of those guys, most of those guys that I know are my friends. I don't know everybody on his staff. He's got some new guys. I don't know them all, but I go back a long way with a lot of those guys, and so I certainly don't see it as a hated rivalry. That's just me personally. Do we want to win? Yeah, we want to win. Do we want to win every Saturday? You bet we do. Do we want to play hard? Do we want to be physical? You bet. But to feel that way about them, I mean, that's just never been my nature. I guess I could say that to make people feel good, but I'm more concerned with tomorrow's practice than I am necessarily that part of the game.
There's a new standard for rivalry games. All you have to do is have a more exciting game than Alabama and Auburn did.
Yeah, that would be a tough one. I watched more football this weekend than I had maybe in years. And I will have to admit it was entertaining. Make a guy want to watch more.
Do you practice field goal coverage a little more after seeing that?
It's funny, Jenny, you mentioned that it's a discussion we had. Because we all learned from what we think are mistakes. I'm not saying that Coach Saban made a mistake. I'm just saying that you watch things and you learn. You think, I don't know if that's, I need to think about that. Because most of us, you guys may think differently, but for me, my first concern was they may block this thing and pick it up and run it in. And I knew they would try to return it, but you just don't think of them returning it 100 and something yards because you know he's going to kick it in the end zone. You think he would. So, we all learn. I know I learned from watching the game. I will admit that. Good? All right.